All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. We get together most weekday mornings. We won't tomorrow, by the way, because of travel, but normally we get together most weekday mornings, talk about the grant, and really our focus is increasing financial literacy regarding how to get money to start or grow a business. Now, I'm a realist, and I know most grown adults don't want to talk about financial literacy. We need to just know practical information. What is it we need to know to solve our problem? So, if a problem that you or someone that you know has is getting money to start or grow a business, we're going to address some information over the next few minutes that is factual, it's accurate, and I think can be very helpful. So, we're going to talk about formula for funding as it states there on the shared screen. There are two important resource sites that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. Certainly encourage you to visit both of those after the Zoom, one of which is for actually participating. You'll go to formulaforfunding.com, fill out a simple form, and that will allow us to see if you qualify to participate. One of our funding attorneys will pick up the phone, a real person talking to you, answering your questions, and seeing if you're a good fit. The second resource site, spefunding.com, has a lot of detailed training. So if you're really analytical, like some of you, like Amanda, she's one of the most, and I mean that in a good way, she's one of the most analytical people I've ever met. So she needs to really understand how it works. We can only cover so much in a brief overview session this morning, but you can go to spefunding.com and really take a deep dive in understanding these strategies. But ultimately, we're going to answer the question that if you're looking for business, looking for money to start or grow a business, we're going to give you some valuable information about how to get it. Nothing illegal, nothing inappropriate, no smoke and mirrors, no BS, but some factual information that I think you'll find very useful. So, with that, we have an agenda. We'll have a quick introduction. We're going to talk about some truths because if our goal is to get funding, it may be that some of the preconceived information that you have, prior knowledge or prior experiences, may not always be true going forward. So we're going to address some of the truths about getting business funding. We're going to cover the formula for funding, also a legal loophole of frankly how to get that formula for funding very quickly without any out-of-pocket expense. And then lastly, again, determine if you qualify. So, with that being said, we start with asking for some audience engagement. Some of you want to participate, some of you don't. But it is helpful because if you're here this morning versus doing or listening to the recording afterwards, you're spending your valuable time with us, which we're appreciative of, versus doing whatever else you could be doing. So if you have a problem to solve, we're going to talk about some really good information about how to solve that problem. So let's start with, is there a problem? So I love towards the end of the month. Here we are on April 28th, almost the end of April, almost the beginning of May. What a great time to stop and ask ourselves, how's it going objectively? And maybe the easiest way to look is open up your bank account. Look at your business bank account if you have a business formed already. Do I have the money that I need to start to grow to reach my potential? And it's probably a yes or no answer. And if no, then that's a problem that we can talk about a solution. If yes, congratulations, you're in a great spot. But most people don't have the money they need to start to grow to reach their potential. So with that being said, you really, in my opinion, forgive me if you disagree, you need to be able to articulate what do you need? How much money do you need in the next 30 days to be able to start to grow your business to reach your potential? And if you don't know the answer to number two, and forgive me for saying this, I would argue you don't need capital right now because it's irresponsible as a business owner, current or future, to just say, I need money. Just get me money. I need money. Well, how much money do you need? What do you need it for? That's called uses of funds. So if we want to think like a banker, so that's really the overlying theme of our discussion this morning. I want you to stop looking at the world through your eyes, through your perspective, and look at it through the bank's perspective. Because the bank's the one that has the money. Whatever amount you need, it's over at the bank right now. And if we can provide the bank what they want to see, what they need for approval, then you can get approved. So we need to look at things from the bank's perspective, not your perspective. So with that being said, you need to know how much funding you need and what you're going to use it for. When we talk about the formula to funding, it is a process that it's proven, it's not speculative, it always works. And we're also going to talk some about SPE, special purpose entities. Some of you like to call them SPVs, special purpose vehicles. But the bottom line is there's a unique approach, a legal and ethical approach to be able to have the formula for funding. And many of you refer to this as I would as well, as the smart choice. So if you're not familiar with SPEs, then you probably weren't able to choose the smart choice. But I think once we go through this over the next few minutes, you'll agree with me. All right, so let's cover some basics first, some truths. The first of which is anyone can get a large business loan. And we say legally and ethically, of course. So it's not unobtainable. It's not too good to be true. It's not reserved for someone else that you're somehow not deserving. But you do need to meet the underwriting criteria of the lender. So that gets to the second bullet. And the way that we summarize it is if you want business funding, you need to have a fundable business. To expect anything else is unrealistic. It's too good to be true. It's a scam. So we do have to meet what the lender's looking for. We do need to have a fundable business. Well, you might say, how do I get a fundable business? Well, funny that you ask. There's two approaches. We can either build a fundable business or we can go buy a fundable business. Now, I know we've not discussed what a fundable business means yet. We're going to get to that in a moment. But it is important that you recognize there's only two ways to get a fundable business. You either build it or you buy it. And that's true with a lot of things in life. Historically, people would think about building. Okay, I'll put all the pieces together. And frankly, that's how we started. But after doing this for a number of years, and the three of us that formed this all came from the SBA, we've come to the decision that building is typically not the right option. People are best served by buying, B-U-Y, buying a fundable business. And so that may sound contrarian or inconsistent with what you had planned to hear or have thought about in the past. But if you hear me out, I think you'll agree. You do need to have a fundable business to get business funding, and your best bet for almost all of us, for 99 out of 100 people, is to buy one, not to build one. So with that being said, some people would say, well, that sounds fine, but I'm not in a position that I can go afford to buy anything, right? I need funding. So how in the world am I going to go buy a business that's fundable when I don't have money? I need money. Well, that's where if you're familiar with grants that are available, you can legitimately, legally, ethically buy a fundable business regardless of credit scores, with no money out of pocket. And we'll address how to do that over the next few minutes. All right, so as I mentioned, Mark, Chuck, and I, we all came from the SBA, and we were frankly involved with building fundable businesses. That's what we did in three different SBA offices across Texas. And we did that for thousands of businesses. So we kind of mastered how to build a fundable business. But the problem is when you build a fundable business, you're dependent upon the client, the grant participant, you, for example, to be able to bring some pieces to the plate, to the table. And a lot of folks don't have those pieces, which we'll go through what those are, and that's a real barrier. So we have pivoted as of January of this year, and through the grant, we focus on providing people a fundable business, what we'd call the BUI option. The bottom line, not too good to be true, it's stated here in the bottom left of the screen. We need to show the bank what they want to see legally, ethically. And if we do that, we get approved. And that's true with lots of things. You do that for a car loan, you get approved. You do that for a mortgage for a house, you get approved. It's true also for a business loan. The problem is a lot of people don't know the formula for funding, so they don't know what the lender's looking for, and thus they don't present it. So the good news is we can follow this formula for funding. We can guarantee at least 250,000 within 30 days. And the way that we go about doing this is called the legal loophole. So let's talk about the legal loophole. As you might have inferred, the special purpose entity, the SPE, is the vehicle that we use as the legal loophole. It's a way that anyone can buy, BUI, buy a fundable business with no out-of-pocket cost and get that 250,000 in 30 days. Now, if we wanted to build a fundable business, we can do that. Would it take longer than 30 days? Most likely, but it depends upon the individual circumstances. But let's go ahead and go through what is both the formula for funding and concurrently what's included in the SPE, because those are one and the same, right? Because that's why we offer the SPE, to provide people a business that is fundable. So the first thing that we're going to need is a compliant business entity. You might already have one, that's fine, but it could be an LLC, C Corp, or S Corp, but it needs to be filed and it needs to be compliant. It needs to be current. So for example, you need to file your tax returns every year. And people will often give you the yeah, but I didn't make any money, so I didn't file any returns. Bank wants to see the tax return. If the business has been around prior to the beginning of this year, formed before January 1st, 2026, as of this recording, they want to see a bank statement. They don't want the yeah buts. You're not going to be able to out talk. Many of you have a silver tongue, and you'll want to talk. You believe that you can persuade the lender to change their underwriting. I don't think you're going to do that. I think we need to understand what they want, give them what they want, get approved, get your money. So we do need a compliant entity. If you have one, great. If not, through the grant, through the SPE, we provide a compliant shelf corp, and that's a great start. So compliant entity, again, means it's in good standing at state and federal level, doesn't have any derogatories, doesn't have any unpaid debts, doesn't have any liens, so forth. Not too hard, not too difficult, but it definitely starts with that. Next, we are going to need a loan package. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe you don't know what that means. Maybe you want to discredit it, but I wouldn't recommend doing so. For larger business loans, lenders are going to typically want to see a loan package, which includes things like a business plan, financials, feasibility data. So it's the paperwork. So maybe to you it seems unnecessary, maybe to you it seems bureaucratic, but it's what the lenders want to see. I'm here to encourage you, don't fight the system. Understand the system, comply with the system, and you get funding. We're going to need a loan package. We provide that turnkey through the SPE, through the quote unquote buy option with no out of pocket cost. However, certainly you could go put all that together yourself if you wanted. I'm confident that you could do a great job of that. And then where the rubber hits the road, the third of the final components of the formula for funding, which also includes what's in the SPE, are the 3 C's. So what do I mean by that? So that's a summarization of typically how a bank looks at the credibility of the borrower. So the first C is credit. Credit can be from a personal perspective, the personal credit of the business owner, and the business credit of the business itself. We address both through the SPE. So if personal credit's not strong, not a problem. We'll provide a cosigner. Business credit, we're going to provide the entity, the shelf corp, number one above, and then we add trade lines. And so we're actually bringing those trade lines internal in addition to external. So historically, we've done things like company cars and company credit cards, and those are both fine and available to everyone. But also now we're adding new trade lines as we're going to start being a data furnisher ourselves. So credit is important both on the personal side, even if you want a business loan, and business side. If personal credit's not strong, no worries. We'll provide a cosigner, and then we're going to make sure the business credit's strong by adding trade lines. If you have any questions, let me know. Second of the three C's is collateral. Collateral are the assets that the business owns that allows us to give the lender assurance that if for some reason we don't pay the loan back the way we promised, that in fact that there's something for them to mitigate their risk. So it's what we're pledging, what we're putting up. A lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't have collateral because normally lenders went dollar for dollar. So if you wanted $1 million loan, typically they want $1 million of collateral. Well, that can be a problem. We provide that through the SPE, dollar for dollar. And then capacity is the third C. This is the ability to demonstrate to the lender that we can afford to pay the debt back. Now, that could theoretically be through future financial projections, but also they're going to typically look at what do you have coming in now, whether it be current business, other businesses you own, and or personal income. So we provide the three C's so we can get approved. We provide through the SPE, through the grant, the loan package, and we provide the shelf court. So do you have to have an SPE to get business funding? Of course not. But do you need to meet the formula for funding? Of course you do. So, number one, you're going to need a good, clean entity. You can use ours or provide your own. Number two, you need to have a loan package, the paperwork. And if you don't have that, we can provide it, or you can do it yourself or hire. I used to work at Deloitte. My first job out of graduate school was at Deloitte and Touche. Now it's called Deloitte. You can hire those smart people anywhere from $300 to $700 an hour, and they'll put together that loan package for you that'll walk right through underwriting. But be prepared for a $20,000 to $30,000 retainer. It's free through the SPE. And then we're going to need the three C's. We're going to need credit worthiness at the personal and business level. We provide you that. You're going to need collateral. We provide you that. You're going to need capacity. We provide you that. So there's a lot to it, but the nice thing is if you quote unquote buy a fundable business, it comes with it. Are we the only way that you could buy a fundable business? Absolutely not. I mean, you could go find other businesses for sale, grocery stores, gas stations, hospitals, auto dealerships, whatever you want. There's probably lots of businesses that you could go buy that meet the underwriting criteria. But of course, you need to be able to afford to buy it. In this case, we provide the SPE. It's not free, but through the grant, there's a deposit, a $5,000 deposit, but they finance that. Even if you got horrible credit, they still finance that. So it's attainable to anyone. So, from our perspective, we need to figure out if you are a good fit if you're looking for assistance. And the way that you do that is you go to formulaforfunding.com, and there it's going to take you 1 to 2 minutes to fill out the brief form. And then at that point, one of our funding attorneys is going to reach out, frankly interview you, but answer your questions. And it's not about filtering you off of your credit or money situation, but we're looking for the right fit to participate in the grant. We have a limited number of slots, so we're getting more and more selective to make sure those that are participating are the right fit. So the only way to get in is to go to formulaforfunding.com, fill that out. One of our funding attorneys will contact you. Now, if you are accepted, you will be issued a written guarantee for the $250,000 in 30 days. So we'll back up everything with writing, but we do need to see if you qualify. With that, let me know what questions, concerns you have, and we'll address those. We have 528 of you on this morning. All right, Mark is asking about the car allowance. So, yes, that's still available, but I'll explain that. So, we have the client proposition, the grant participant proposition, which is what we've been talking about today. And then, secondly, we also have distribution partners, and Mark's one of our top distribution partners. He's a machine. So our distribution partners focus on going out and educating and creating awareness about the SPE and about the grant. And so they get paid to do that. No surprise, right? People that create value get paid. So, and with that, we had an incentive we announced earlier in the year, which continues the car allowance. So yes, sir. All right. So with that being said, who else has questions? Your action steps crazy simple, right? At your convenience, go to formulaforfunding.com, fill out the simple form. You'll have the paperwork there in front of you. Once you've completed that, one of our funding attorneys will contact you. We'll make sure that you're a good fit. And if so, we'll issue the written guarantee. You'll participate, and we're off and running. Yes, there is a deposit. However, it can be financed. I'd say about half the people finance it, about half the people pay out of pocket, but they don't have to. It's the financing is guaranteed. Who else has questions, comments, concerns? All right, it looks like Rod's got a question. So, Rod, I think you've got 17 new clients coming on before the end of the month. Rod, is that still correct? If you could respond back. So Rod is an example of one of our business development partners. So we have some business development partners that kind of dabble, and then we have kind of what we call the all-stars like Rod. But yes, if you're interested in being a distribution partner, still follow the same process. Come over to formulaforfunding.com. You'll speak with one of our funding attorneys. We'll make sure there's a good fit, and then if so, we can collaborate. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns for today? We won't have a Zoom tomorrow because of travel. Normally we do it every weekday, but we'll be back on Thursday. You're welcome to come back on Thursday. You're welcome to bring a guest or a couple guests. If you're a referral partner, this is a great place to help increase the knowledge of your prospects. And we sure hope to have a chance to work with you. Have a great day, and we'll see you back Thursday morning, same time, same place. Bye bye.